Tandem Nomads, episode 98. Okay, this is probably the most difficult podcast episode I've ever recorded till now. Hello, Nomad Nation. This is Amel Deregi. I'm a marketing and business coach and the founder of Tandem Nomads. Tandem Nomads is the podcast show and entrepreneurship platform where you can find great inspiration and tips to turn your career challenges into a successful, portable business. So this podcast episode is a little bit different compared to the usual ones for many reasons. The first one is it is completely unscripted. I have not prepared anything, and this is so unusual for me. I usually make sure to know exactly how I'm going to bring certain information to you, but not this time. This time I've decided to just go for it and make this very, very difficult announcement for me to do regarding this podcast episode. So, this is difficult, but anyhow, I decided to jump and do it. So, I have decided that I will make a pause on Tandem Nomads podcast episodes. I have been running this podcast show for 2.5 years and never missed a single episode. And now I find it is time to take a break and think about the next steps in a more, in a less structured way, in a way. I think for all of you there who have been listening to this podcast episode, who know me, you might have noticed that I'm a pretty structured person and I like to have an organization behind everything I do. And it's a little uncomfortable for me right now to just not plan anything besides just announcing that I will be pausing this podcast. But I'm going to explain you why in a few seconds. But I just, first of all, want to thank all of you who have been listening to this podcast for so long, and welcome all of you who have just joined, because although I am pausing this podcast episode, it is not the end. So I will explain in a few seconds, but it is very, very important for me to thank all of you, first of all, for being here, because I realized that since I have started podcasting, there's so many podcast shows out there nowadays, and the fact that you take the time to tune in and listen to every episode, or a couple of them, or maybe just one even, it's a huge honor for me that you take the time for it. So I really want you to realize that I really don't take that for granted, and really want to thank you for that. It means the world for me. So I'm really not giving up on you. This podcast episodes and this podcast show means everything to me, because it is what allowed me to be what I am today, where I am today. So, but I want you to know that I'm really, really grateful for your attention and for tuning in. And I hope that every episode you've listened to served you as well as you wish. So, and was helpful to you. So what's happening and why am I pausing Tandem Nomads podcast episodes for the next couple of months? So I do not have an exact date yet, but I'm aiming for October. I'm aiming to relaunch this podcast episode in October, but for now, this is gonna be the last podcast episode until the end of the summer 2018. And so the reason I'm doing this are multiple, but I have to say that it is probably the most difficult decision I've ever had to take, because it's been 2.5 years. I never missed a single podcast episode, and this has become part of my comfort zone in a way, and part of part of my routine to always think of the next episode's topic and plan it. And for me, it's a connection that is hard to stop. I do feel connected to all of you who are out there listening, even if I'm not talking and exchanging with each of you directly. I have a strong feeling and emotional attachment to this podcast episodes. But maybe that's the problem, actually. And maybe that's why I'm having a hard time finding and discovering and understanding where to not go next. So that's the first reason, to be honest with you. And that's the other hard part of this podcast episode. It's I've been pretty good at becoming more vulnerable and sharing my journey with you quite honestly and transparently. But usually I always did it after having experienced something, and then I came back to you and shared my learned lessons. In this case, I'm actually just sharing with you what's happening right now, and I'm sorry if this podcast episode is not maybe useful in terms of practical tips for you, but I just want to share with you where I am in this journey, where Tandem Nomads has been growing pretty fast, and especially this year 2018, it's been very progressive. So I launched in November 2015, and the first months were pretty slow, and then it just progressively and slowly grow. It was not from a day to another, but 2018 turned out to be a very, very, very busy first months, and it's been amazing. I don't want to complain about it. It's been just amazing because I've never coached so many clients, developing Tandem Nomads corporate clients too, and I've been meeting so many amazing people. I've been speaking so many events. It's been just amazing. But that's the thing, it has been so fast that I never had the time to ever reflect on what just happened. I would have an event here, I would have a new client there, and I would just not have a single moment to pause and reflect. And it's so important for me to try to be mindful in my way of doing business. And if I have the feeling that I'm going on auto mode, it's on certain things, on certain ways, very good. If there's systems that are efficient and that it's on auto mode, that it provide you efficiency, that's great. But if at some point I have the feeling that it is blocking my creativity and that I'm only on a reactive mode rather than a proactive mode, even if the business is growing, I kind of feel it's putting me in danger, because I think it's very important to actually really be able to reflect on what we're doing on a daily basis and thinking midterm, short term, but also long term. So yeah, I just want to share with you that I feel like it's time for me to pause for many reasons. The first one is to be able to plan the next step for Tandem Nomads. Plan it strategically, because what was strategically but also creatively, I just want to be more spontaneous, and I love structure. As those of you who might know me, it's important for me to be very focused, to be very structured, to have clear goals, and I still believe that's super important. You might have heard my previous episodes about how to organize your time, how to set up your goals, and how to be focused, and so important for me. But it's also, and it works, to be honest, it does work. But at some point, I too also think it's important to let a little bit of space for creativity and for spontaneity. And I'm having the feeling that I'm kind of losing my ability to be spontaneous. And this is why I actually decided to just pick up my recorder. I'm not even in my office. I'm right now in my bedroom, and recording from a small recorder. I hope the sound quality is going to be good. But yeah, I just want to be able to be more spontaneous in the way I do business. I want to continue to be strategic, but leave space for that. And I realized that these last months, the busier I got, the less I had space for that. And the more I would delegate and make space for that, the more I would fill it with more work. And that did not make sense. is not making sense for me. Why? The more I delegate, the more work I'm having. And I'm very, very grateful to have a great team, Tandem Nomads, that's helping me. And I can really rely on great people. But it's just not been working for me in a way that I have not been able to digest everything that's been happening, because it's just been happening so fast. I will go to amazing events, speak at amazing events, travel. I've been traveling so much in 4 months and coming back to the next thing, and never had the time to pause and think about what just happened and digest everything that has happened. And I think that's a dangerous way to live, to just be on a reactive mode and not on a I wouldn't say proactive mode, because it's good to be proactive, but it's very important for me to try to run my business in a mindful way. And as soon as I feel like I am not being mindful in the way I'm running things, I have the feeling that it is time to kind of slow down a little bit and think about where I want to go next. So even in moments of growth, that's a little bit my lesson that I'm learning right now as I'm speaking to you, is that starting a business can be very challenging, but if you put yourself into it and be consistent, as I often say, it really, really works. If you're clear, if you remember, I shared with you my 3 C's: clarity, consistency, and conversion. I think that really works. But what I'm learning is that when your business grows, it brings another set of challenges. And there are good challenges. I actually love the challenge. But I also don't want to be all the time on a speed mode, and get away from also my own life goals. And that's the second reason. On top of Tandem Nomads, strategic thinking of where to go next with this podcast episodes and this podcast show, I also want to be more mindful about how I am aligning my business with my own personal life goals. And I think it's all important for us to be able to think about that. So I hope that by sharing my experience as I'm going through it, hopefully it will be helpful to you, because it's kind of hard for me to just talk about my experience without sharing any insights. And in this case, I really don't have any insights to share. I'm sorry. I'm just sharing things as thinking about them with you. But really, I realized that I got really busy, and I just don't have the bandwidth to be able to be present for certain friends, for my own partner, for my family. And that's really important for me to find not the balance, because if you heard me in the past, I might have said it and I still believe it. I don't think life balance exists. I don't think such a thing exists. But I do believe in the strategy of pull and push. Push and pull. And that's a little bit what I'm doing now. I've been pushing really hard in the first 5 months of 2018. It got some great results, but I think it is time to pull a little bit to be able to push better later. So that's a little bit what I'm thinking. And also in terms of innovation and creativity, it's hard to be creative when you're always on the reactive mode. And I want to be a little more creative. I want to be more spontaneous. And I also want to spend more quality time with my loved ones. So I need to find a way to make that work. How to find that rhythm of pull and push that will also allow me to be present and mindful in my day-to-day personal life. So that's also the reason why I'm sharing that with you. I do believe that there is no way to build a successful portable business or there's no way to actually get anything done that you really want to do in your life if you don't put yourself 100% into it. That is so important. I still believe it. But it's also important to do it in a mindful way where you actually know and can listen to your body. And when it says, maybe it is time to slow down a little bit and think. The hardest part for me right now, it's really actually a difficult decision for many reasons. The first one is it is very scary to pause something that I've been doing for 2.5 years on a consistent base. I've never missed a single podcast episode, and that's really, really hard. And the other thing, to be honest with you, I am kind of scared that you might not come back if I leave for a couple of months. So I really hope that when I'll be relaunching this podcast episodes, that I will be able to reconnect with you. Although I'm stopping this podcast new episodes, but I will be continuing to share on social media, on the Facebook page of Tandem Nomads, and on my newsletter. I will be, during the summer, sharing, organizing basically previous podcast episodes into themes from the beginning of Tandem Nomads until now, and organizing them into themes to extract the best takeaways for you. So if you haven't listened to these podcast episodes, you might have not listened to some of them, you might discover them for the first time, or you might have heard them already and be able to listen to them again to be able to maybe grasp other aspects of these podcast episodes. So I'm not completely disappearing from the surface, but still it's kind of hard to think that I might be gone for a few months, and maybe when I come back there will be nobody listening. Who knows? So to be honest, that's really scary. But that's where I want to also thank my great friends who have been really encouraging me. So as some of you know, I have a mastermind, and I've been discussing this with my group of peers and telling them how scared I was. And I'm so grateful for your encouragement, their encouragement. So I want to thank all of you in my mastermind for pushing me, and also to my friend Stephanie. She's been also pushing me and said, don't worry, just go for it. So always good to be able to surround ourselves with the right people that will encourage you in what you do and support you. So I'm so grateful for that. I'm really grateful that you're still listening to this episode right now as I'm speaking, and I'm really grateful that to be really well surrounded. So basically that's the main message I want to share with you. First of all, I don't have a specific message. For me, here is more about practicing. What I really want is to be more spontaneous and more authentic and more vulnerable. That I don't have it all figured out all the time. I might give this impression maybe, but as the business grows, there are moments where I need to actually think and structure things or destructure things. So it's not easy, and I also want to think a bit how I can manage my business more mindfully to align it with my life. But also very important for me, I want to make sure that the next steps and the next episodes of Tandem Nomads really serve your best interests. There's no point for me, and that's also the biggest highlight here that I want to underline about this podcast episode and why I made this decision of pausing Tandem Nomads podcast episodes. I don't want to create new podcast episodes just for the sake of having content out there. I really want to make sure that I'm providing value, and that what I'm doing is really useful to you. And that where I would love it if you could share with me where you are in your stage, what are you looking for, if the previous episodes were helpful to you. What would you like to hear that you haven't heard in this podcast episodes? I'm still struggling. Basically, my biggest struggle, to be honest with you, with this podcast is that I realize I'm attracting different people from different stages, especially expat partners who are in different stages. We have expat partners who are just starting to consider having a business, and others who already have a business and want more practical and in-depth marketing support, and those who are just starting, who actually just want introduction to it. I'm also attracting people who are not expat partners. So I'm trying to figure out how to serve all of you. So if you listen to the previous episodes, I was sharing with you the importance of having a clear niche. So Tandem Nomads niche is very clear. It is supporting expat partners' dual career challenges and by helping them building a portable business. But what I shared in the previous episode is also, as you grow, your niche will expand, and this is what's happening. My niche is expanding, and part of my audience is growing with me as I grow, and new ones are coming in, and I need to make sure to be able, if you're just coming in, to be able to serve you as well. So I need to find a way on how I can serve all of you who are in different stages in a useful and sustainable way. I really don't want to put out there content just for the sake of saying that I'm putting content out there. So that's another thing that is really important for me. So please reach out. Please tell me exactly what you're expecting from this podcast. And if you've been listening for a while, I would love to know how was it useful for you? Why have you been listening for so long? What did it bring to you, so that I make sure to keep it? And if something was missing, that's also important to share. Any feedback if things are too complicated, or I've heard that my podcast episodes are also sometimes too long. So I have heard that, and I will definitely try to be much shorter in the future. So every constructive feedback is more than welcome, especially now that I'm going to pause. First, to take a break. I'm going to not think about work for a long time. Trust me, at least a month during the summer. And then I will be collecting all the feedbacks I've received, and I really want to include yours. So if you're listening, make sure to leave a comment on tandemnomads.com/98. Leave a comment there and let me know about your feedback. What did you enjoy so far? If you have just came, why did you stick in so long? And but also, most importantly, what would you like to see differently? Because that's also important for me to know. So I'm thinking now, did I cover it all? Yeah, basically the point here was just to be vulnerable and share with you that I'm going in a moment where I need to reflect and think about the next steps as Tandem Nomads grows. And I hope that you'll be sticking with me for a while, even if I'm pausing the podcast episodes. Know that if you're registered on Tandem Nomads newsletter, you will still receive my newsletter, not every week, but probably every 2 weeks. You will receive a newsletter during the summer of this year, 2018, as this podcast is recorded. I will be actually sending very short snippets of old podcasts and organizing them in themes, so that you can if you want to still listen to maybe previous episodes or episodes you might have missed, you will be able to have them organized in very in useful themes, and you can really see what has been put out there for the last 2.5 years. Because that's important to also, it might be helpful for me to have a vision on what we have been doing so far. Anyhow, so if you want to make sure to stay in touch, please make sure to sign up in tandemnomads.com/98 to my newsletter, so that we can stay in touch. I really, really hope that you'll be there when I will relaunch, probably in October 2018. With new content. I will think of a new concept. I will try to innovate and be creative. I think it's very important at some point to just pause and be creative. That's really important, and I'm missing that somehow. I have the feeling I'm running a little bit out of creativity, and I think that the best way to be able to be creative sometimes is to pause. As I explained before, my strategy and my philosophy of push and pull and push. So let's see if that works. Anyhow, so I think I have shared pretty much most of the things I wanted to share with you. And thank you so much for sticking in until now. I hope this was not too boring for you. It is so uncomfortable for me to just talk without bringing practical tips and things like that. This is not so much in my nature to just babble. But in any case, I just wanted to, just do what I preach. I preach authenticity and spontaneity, and I think at this point I just have to do it myself. So I hope that this was in a way or another useful for you, and I really look forward to staying in touch with you. And please make sure to share your feedback in this webpage, tandemnomads.com/98. I really want to hear about you, and I would love to stay in touch with you. So until then, probably October, I'll make sure to let you know if you're signed up to the newsletter whenever we launch. And in the meantime, as usual, I invite you to stay tuned and to turn your challenges into great opportunities.